Well, the Clemson Tigers got back on the beam last Saturday in Blacksburg, Virginia. A big 24-14 victory over the Hokies. And Clemson was able to shake off yet another lackluster first half and roared to life in the third and fourth quarters and recaptured the momentum that they had prior to the loss to Louisville. And now the Tigers turn their attention to a very game Pitt Panthers squad, and they'll travel to the Steel City. And that game will be at 12 noon on Saturday. We're going to break it all down and talk about it here on this episode of Around the Paw. All right, well, Griffin, it's just you and I tonight. Cliff's not able to join us, but that's okay. You and I will hold down the fort. So going back to last Saturday, I just want to get your thoughts on Saturday's game. And I can speak for myself when I say sitting at home watching it on my couch, I decided not to make the trip up to Blacksburg. I might have said some things that would have contributed to my swear jar fund because the first half Saturday was UGLY.
It wasn't the best, and neither team played well in that first half. It was just a matter of who had the bigger turnovers, and it was Clemson off that block kick. Again, you're continuously seeing a problem with special teams on nearly all facets. The kicking game has missed blocks. Not only that, but Hoosier kicks generally low, so you sometimes could get a paw on that if you're a defensive special teams member. But at the same time, I have really not been impressed with this punting game. I truly haven't. And Aiden Swanson has been here for such a long time, and kind of looking at all these punts right now, I just don't really understand how there has been so much struggling in the punting game when Aiden Swanson has had so much good games, especially looking at last year. He essentially won Clemson the game against Notre Dame with all that great field positioning. So that was an issue. Offense didn't really click. And then they began to kind of figure out that rhythm in the second half. And that was, again, as Cliff says, just feeding the ball to Phil Maffa. So I liked what I saw at the end of that second half, especially with how Cade Klubnik responded in a hostile environment. I really liked the offensive line. Tristan Lee went down, incoming Elijah Thurman, a freshman, defending one of the toughest edges on not only Virginia Tech, but the whole ACC. I thought he did a great job. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And for this Clemson team, they finished strong. And that garbage time touchdown doesn't really mean much to me. If you're the defense, that was an incredible game. And I know we'll get to that in a little bit, but I thought it was a good one.
No, it really was. I'm just going to go back and throw this comment in about, about the punting game. Last Friday at my high school's game, last regular season game, Woodruff High School's punter, who is a rugby-style punter, kid is a junior. He's an 11th grader. He boomed one 64 yards. About 55 of those were on the fly. So, I don't know. Call me cynical. I don't understand why Clemson cannot punt the ball like that. It's just, I agree with you. It's baffling.
It truly is. Because the special teams have so much more of an impact than a game than people think. Not to bring up the rival, but bring up South Carolina, for example. That's where they have kind of made their cream of the crop, especially under Shane Beamer. Maybe not this year, but they have gotten many of those kind of bounces their way, which helps them win games. Special teams helps you win games more than people think, especially with that blocked field goal return for a touchdown. That gave Virginia Tech all the momentum in the world going in with a 7-0 lead. But at the end, on the other end, it's just Clemson. It's Coach Sweeney and the players, and they just beat them athletically with their play. And you were able to see a little bit more of that, kind of those first few games across that win streak where Clemson was just blowing out opponents. Everyone was thinking that there was going to be a new Clemson. And that was a big question for me going into this game was, are we going to see the team that crumble to Louisville, or are we going to see that team that dominated NC State, Stanford, Florida State, were able to manhandle Virginia, stay in control? And you didn't see that first half. The second half, you saw it was all Clemson, and it was almost not even in a away environment, especially after a few of those throws that Cade made and a few of those touchdowns that went down.
Yeah, and you talk about special teams and defense, as they say, wins championships. And to my eye, I thought even when the offense just simply could get nothing going in the first half on Saturday, it was the defense that kept Clemson in that ball game. And 180 from Louisville game, every single facet that Clemson struggled in just clamped down on Virginia Tech. And I looked at the stats. It was late in the ballgame. I want to say it was maybe late in the third quarter. Virginia Tech had less than 60 yards rushing. This is a team that can run the ball and run the ball well. And I'm just sitting and thinking to myself, holy cow, took the offense a while to get going, but the defense has just been locked in right from the start. To me, that was great to see.
Right. And I was a little bit confused with Virginia Tech's game plan, why they didn't give the ball to Tootin a little bit more, because he was kind of the bell cow back. We were going to expect him to get a lot of rushes, especially how Isaac Brown did a week before. But he only had 4 rushes and didn't get a single yard. Maybe that is due to the injury that he had. Same thing with Drones. Drones was pulled in the fourth quarter. Again, maybe that if that's player injury, I'm not sure. But credit to Wes Goodwin's scheme. He was able to switch up. I don't know if you saw this, but took out that nickel, threw in the extra linebacker, enter Sammy Brown, who had the best performance for an ACC linebacker this week.
Huge game.
Got to give him credit. Absolutely. It's a true difference maker. It takes a lot more stress off of guys like Barrett Carter and Wade Woodaz to focus on their mans one-on-one. And a big credit to this defensive line, too, for getting pressure. I know TJ Parker forced a fumble. I know that they kind of just made Drones uncomfortable, which is very uncommon for a mobile quarterback of his stature. And then Ashton Hampton, too. We haven't seen him at all over these last few weeks. And then here
what
he
an
is
interception.
making these big
I'm
plays.
still in awe over that pick.
I know. And that's the guy that he is. And the frame that he has, he was on an island. He was by himself. I forget the receiver's name, but he made a big play. And then a play later, Hampton got the best of it. It's a freshman, 6'2". He's going to be good. I'm excited for his frame because a lot of these cornerbacks are much smaller, under that 6 foot area. So seeing Hampton's progressions is going to be something that I'm looking forward to, especially going into this week against Pitt, as well as semi.
Yeah, agree 100%. I'm not so sure how much attention I'd paid to Ashton Hampton prior to Saturday, but that just opened my eyes, the way he played. I'm like, holy cow, this kid is going to be so good. But great to see the defense respond. Now, before we move on to talking about the Pitt game this week, I do want to pick your brain on one almost thing that he was talking about Cade Klubnik and said he thought it was the worst game that Cade had played. I can't remember if he said the worst game he thought he had ever played or had played this season. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, that's a bit of an odd thing to say because Cade Klubnik made some unbelievable plays in the second half of that game. The one where he just rolled away from the pressure, nearly got sacked, stayed upright, somehow found TJ Moore inside the 10-yard line. That's one of the better plays I've seen a Clemson quarterback make probably since Trevor Lawrence. I mean, that was a special play.
It was a spectacular play. I did not go to Blacksburg either. This was the first game that I've seen Clemson play from the comfort of my couch, and the people that I was with that were watching the game, they were going crazy, and I was too. I thought that was an outstanding play, but I do get what Sweeney means. There were a few reads that Klubnik missed, a few fourth down conversions that Klubnik missed. I know that Wesco was held, but the inability to kind of just overcome that adversity even more. That's a little bit rough. And then he did throw that interception on the first drive. Do I think it was, like a bad interception? No, I thought that it was a little bit more of, like a hand punt, just giving the ball inside their own 20. But a better read could have been made for sure. But it's, again, with this game, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And Cade finished strong. And I think that, again, I'm really liking what you're seeing in the mobile game, seeing him use his legs. It's all just going to be just stages of improvement. And if Cade continues to do that, starts against Pittsburgh. And then if you go South Carolina, who have one of the toughest defenses in the country in terms of just physicality and how hungry they are to beat Clemson, if he's able to do that, I think that it's a more successful season than last season for Klubnik.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Now, I will say this, my last thought on Virginia Tech before we move on to Pitt. You mentioned the interception that Klubnik threw in the first quarter. Really, what you said is true. It essentially functioned as a punt because Virginia Tech, I want to say they took over at maybe their own 7 or 8 yard line. It was inside the 10. But when I went back and watched the replays, call me crazy, I think Jake Brenning still should have probably caught that ball.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I don't really know what kind of happened there, but you pin him inside the 4, and I believe they punted. I'm just going to double check that. Yeah, they 3 and out. So again, give a credit to the defense. The defense won them that game. If this was a game that was like Louisville and they had that high-powered offense and the defense wasn't able to find any answers, I don't know how bad this game could have gotten. It could have been a 2, 3, 4 score game. So give credit to Wes Goodwin, his ability to bounce back, his ability to change the schemes, and shout out the freshman and the next man up mentality because Peter Woods was out too. So shout out those guys on the line who were able to kind of make that stride. And it was an overall a better win than I thought going into this game.
All right, before we go any further, let's give a shout out to one of our fine sponsors, Venture Concrete in Greenville, South Carolina, where concrete meets excellence. Transform your property with the help of our expert concrete services. And at Venture Concrete Greenville, we pride ourselves on delivering top-notch, licensed, and insured concrete services to homeowners all over the Greenville area. From driveways to patios to building slabs, our team of trained professionals can handle any residential project with ease and expertise. Venture Concrete is owned and operated by Clemson Tigers, serving Clemson Tigers and the upstate of South Carolina. You are always on solid ground with Venture Concrete. And now they're moving on to another tough opponent this week, looking for 2 in a row. And you've got the Pitt Panthers. And look, Pitt is always a tough out, but for whatever reason, playing in that stadium in Pittsburgh seems to be a house of horrors for a lot of teams. And the last time Clemson played in Pittsburgh was 2021. And Pitt won that game 27-17. But I watched it, and to my recall, that game was never even really as close as that score. I think Clemson maybe scored a late garbage time touchdown. So, your initial thoughts on the matchup this week and, what does Clemson have to do to go in and withstand, the early surge coming from Pitt? You're going to get it because the Panthers are a very explosive offensive team. They can put points on the board.
Oh, yeah. They're 4th in points in the ACC. They average 36.7, but they have been on a little bit of a rough patch. They have lost 2 straight. And that's why I think Clemson are coming into this game at the right time. Lost to SMU. SMU, I believe, is the most balanced team in the ACC. They put 48 on them, and they used both rushing and passing. It pretty much looks like they opened the game with the run, and then they used Kevin Jennings to kind of just use his arm to extend the passing game, extend that lead. And that's how I think Clemson can win this game to an extent. I think that, again, if you open that game up with Mafia, you make them focus on the run defense, and then open up the pass slowly but surely, and then you get a little bit comfortable, kind of take the crowd out of it. I think that you're able to kind of leave this game with a win. But Pitt's very, very good. The only thing that troubles me is I don't know what their schedule looks like. Their biggest win is against Syracuse. The defense really showed out. And like you said, Garrett, if you're Pat Narduzzi, you are going to put everything on the table those first few drives to get control of this game. Yeah. Because that's what you've seen with Clemson. They struggle playing from behind. They struggle trying to come back and create a rhythm when momentum may not be theirs. They have to begin with it. So for me, whoever begins this game with the most momentum, for me, I believe it will be Clemson just based off of the recent rough patches and this small window of hope with Miami losing to Georgia Tech, the ability to have that chance if you keep on winning. I think that this Clemson team will have to show it because Pitt's very balanced. There's not really anything good, not really anything bad besides, their offense very young. So there are a few ways to go around this game, but I think it's just going to be a matter of who is going to get that first stop or who is going to get that first score.
Right, and when you look at the stats, Pittsburgh really, they're not what I would call a prolific rushing team. They want to be able to establish the pass through the air. Their quarterback, Eli Holstein, has thrown for 2,174 yards and 17 touchdowns. And then the leading receiver is Kanata Mumpfield, 560 yards through the air, but a very balanced passing attack. Running back Desmond Reed, their leading rusher, 670 yards and only 4 touchdowns, which leads the team in rushing touchdowns. So what that says to me is that this is a Pitt team that wants to beat you through the air. It's unlike Louisville and Virginia Tech. They're not trying to beat you on the ground. They want to spread you out, thin you out on defense, and then just take the top off.
That's how it generally was at the beginning of the season, but Holstein has not played as well as he did at the beginning of the year. Looking at their last 4 games, they played Cal. Holstein had 133 yards, only completed 50% of his balls, and had 2 interceptions. Against Syracuse, that was that big game they won by 28. Holstein only threw for 108 yards and 2 touchdowns. But again, that was given that the defense basically gave them that game. Kyle McCord threw 5 interceptions and 3 pick sixes, which kind of shows the story of that game. So I'm going to take that out. That's a little bit of an outlier. Against SMU, he had to throw the ball a little bit more. They were down 31-3 at the half. So again, 248 yards and interception. He threw the ball 48 times. And then Virginia is the only game that has my head scratching because he completed less than 50% of his passes. He was 10 for 23 and only 121 yards. So maybe you're seeing a little bit more of this transition into the run game, into using that defense to kind of set the tone because, again, Pitt only put 19 points on Virginia at home, and they are 4th in the ACC in points, going with 36.7 a game. So for me, I'm interested to see where the point of attack is for Pitt. I think that, again, you're going to use Reed a little bit more and maybe try to get Holstein a little bit more comfortable because he is a freshman. But for me, that's what I'm most interested in seeing. I believe that they will open the game up with a run using Reed, but I wouldn't be surprised if Holstein tries taking it over the top. We just have not seen that in the last few weeks.
Right. And, I think there's something to be said for, and you just mentioned it, catching a team at the right time, if you're looking at it from where their opponent's standpoint. And Pitt, they have struggled. And in particular, in addition to, not throwing the ball as well, and Holstein has 6 interceptions on the year, so he has become interception prone. I think his defenses have kind of figured him out. But Pitt's giving up a lot of points too. And you really saw the offense for Clemson get rolling in the second half again against Virginia Tech. If you're able to carry that momentum into this Saturday's game, I think the opportunity is probably there to put some points on the board early, get off to one of those fast starts like we saw for about 4 or 5 games after the Georgia loss.
That's been the big thing for this team is, finding that rhythm early. And they have a good chance to do that against Pitt. Pitt's passing defense is not good. They're 14th in the ACC. They gave up 251 yards of passing per game. And again, Clemson have played the 3 teams that are lower than them. They played Virginia, they played Stanford, they played Wake Forest. Cade Klubnik has generally had a good game against all 3 of those teams. So again, with rushing, it's a little bit of a different story. Pitt's kind of middle of the pack. They're 4th in defending the run. They only give up 109 yards per game. They're going to be the toughest run defense they are going to be playing on paper. But again, I think that the difference maker here is obviously going to be Phil Maffa. I'm going to speak on Cliff's behalf because I know that he's going to be talking about him. But you saw it in the Virginia Tech game. Early downs, feeding the ball to Maffa on 3rd and short. You give it back to him, see if he can move the chains. Where's defenses out dealing with the 235-pound back in Maffa? So for me, I think again, Sweeney said that Cade didn't have a good day. This could be a great day for him facing a team that does not have the best of pass defenses, but they do force turnovers. That's going to be the only outlier is don't make those dumb throws, make those smart throws. I mean, I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I'm sure you've seen Cade make mistakes every now and then. That could backfire here and kind of open up Pitt for this game. But for me, I think if you're able to open up the pass, get Maffa the ball early, get those 2nd and 3rd and shorts, I think that this team will be just fine, especially with how Pitt's playing.
Right. And another thing that kind of jumps out to me, and looking at Pitt's defensive stats, their leading tackler is Donovan McMillan, who's a defensive back. He leads team with 77 tackles. What that indicates to me is opponents are getting to that third level of Pittsburgh's defense. They're getting past the defensive line. They're getting past the linebackers. And, they're finding opportunities to get larger chunk plays. And I don't think, if your leading tackler is a defensive back, I don't think it would be the opposite way around. But, again, that's just me.
Again, no, and it kind of complements the way that Pittsburgh's numbers are in the sack category. They're third in sacks in the ACC. It's only North Carolina, Virginia Tech, and then Pitt. So again, it's kind of getting that ball out early. If Klubnik's able to do that, maybe it's those quicker passes, and that's kind of what you relate to, Gary. That's probably why it gets to that third level of tackling, because the ball is coming out so quickly. And that's what Klubnik has done a good job in doing, those shorter passes, especially from an accuracy standpoint. I just want to see a deep ball thrown every now and then that connects, whether it be to TJ Moore, whether it be to Brenningstool in the middle of the field, whether it be to Wesco. He's been quiet. I want to see him getting the ball a little bit more, especially to finish off the season strong. Antonio Williams, too. You don't really know who is going to get the ball for this game. I think it's going to be TJ Moore. He's my probably X factor going into this game, besides Phil Maffa, because I know that he's generally a common guy that we're talking about here. But I think that if you're able to get the ball out early, prevent those sacks, prevent those second and third and longs, because that's where Clemson has genuinely struggled in throughout this whole season so far, and keep special teams off the field. I think if you're able to score touchdowns, that has been kind of the winning recipe for this team. You're avoiding any chance of something backfiring.
Yeah,
I believe if you're able to get in the end zone, you're going to have a lot less problems.
Right.
Obviously.
And I said this on Saturday. Just don't attempt another field goal this year. That is where I was at that point. Just do not attempt another field goal. Either go for it or punt, one or the other. And that kind of brings it back around to the next point I was going to make. Let's say this game Saturday does come down to a crucial situation where you really don't have any other option but to kick it. How in the world at this point do you attempt a field goal longer than 25 yards without it getting blocked? Earlier in the season, it was the left side of the wedge on kick blocking that was just getting blown up. Well, on Saturday, it was the middle. So you fixed one spot only to see another crumble. And I texted, not to take credit for this, but I was texting Cliff on Saturday, and I was, needless to say, not in a great frame of mind already, given how the game had been playing. And we lined up for that kick. I texted Cliff. I said, he's getting this blocked. I'm like, this kick will be blocked. And as soon as it got blocked, ran it back for a touchdown. I texted Cliff. I'm like, well, damn, I was wrong. He didn't just block it. He ran it back for a touchdown. I didn't predict the second part. So what do you have to do to ultimately fix this? And I'm not so sure this late in the season that you really can.
It's probably just maneuvering guys around. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know how to fix this either, because I know that you're kind of just plugging and playing different players, especially in that left side with how Florida State went, that Florida State game went. I know that they kept plugging different guys in, and it just, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I don't really know how you fix this late in the season. I think that you just have to really trust your guys. You have to reinforce it. Maybe get a guy like Matt Luke down there saying, hey, this is what you got to do going in here. But if it comes down to a late game situation, in Clemson's case, they're going to have to trust their defense more than they trust their offense. That's kind of the cream of the crop here. That's how they've looked against Virginia Tech, especially on the younger side with so many young guys stepping up. Peter Woods has a great chance of coming back against Pitt. So if he's able to get back disrupted a little bit and keep the Pitt defense on the field, wear them out a little bit, I think that this is where this team can succeed. But special teams, I'm just going to put a big old question mark in there. I genuinely don't really know how that can be fixed at this point in the season.
Right. Certainly would be a big point of emphasis between this season and next. So, it all comes down to it. It's a 12 noon kickoff on Saturday. Love them or hate them, it's an early game this week. We've talked about what Clemson needs to do offensively, defensively in order to win this game. And, I think when it boils down to it, you just have to trust that Coach Sweeney and Wes Goodwin and Garrett Riley have put together a good plan, and you go out there and execute it. And it's really just this simple when you look at ACC championship scenarios. Miami left the door open. If you win, this is Clemson's final ACC game. Win this game and Syracuse beats Miami, Clemson's going to play for an ACC championship. It's that simple.
Or Wake Forest. I mean, you have no idea what could happen. It's college football. But
right.
The window is small. You have to control what you can control. And for Clemson, I think a win here would be great. The last time these two teams played, Garrett, like you said, Pitt took a win, so it's nice to kind of have that win back, have the bragging rights for the next few years. But you just have to keep winning. Don't focus on the opponent. Don't focus on how many points Miami's winning by. Don't focus on who SMU's playing because they still have 3 games and the chance to drop 2. You never really know what can happen in this game. So you just kind of have to focus on what's going on in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and on Saturday afternoon. And that's what's going to have to be the end of the day. If you're going to focus too much on that, and I think a little bit happened in that with the Clemson-Louisville game, you're going to have those players blow by you. Pitt wants to bounce back as much as Clemson wants to bounce back. So for me, you kind of just have to keep focusing on that. And if it unravels the way you have it, make most of that chance.
Right. All right. Well, we've broken it down about as well as we can. So before we wrap it up tonight, let's throw some predictions out there. When you break it down, look at it from both sides, how does this one shake out?
For me, I think, again, you're going to see strides made by this defense. I think the inclusion of the younger guys, like I said, Sammy Brown, I think that he's going to be a game changer, not only for this game, but for seasons to come. If Peter Woods is back, I think that helps out a lot. I kind of like the vibe of this team. They seem like they're clicking, especially on the defensive side after last week with all, the dabbing and all that. I thought that was kind of a way to show that camaraderie together. I think the offense figures most, but not all of things figured out. I don't think Pitt will keep this within a touchdown. I have Clemson 31, Pitt 20.
All right. I'm going to go even a little bolder than that. I do see some opportunities, I think, for the offense to get going early in this ball game. And the defense played so well last week. I think they carry that momentum over. Pitt, they're going to get a couple scores, but I think Clemson's going to be able to jump out early. I think you'll see some replication of the offensive outburst that we had early in the season. So with that said, might be decently close in the first half. Clemson's going to get a couple of scores in the third quarter, and they'll begin to pull away. And we will even manage to make a field goal. Clemson 38, Pittsburgh 21.
Okay. I was thinking that. That's funny.
Well, they say great minds think alike. So
indeed,
you talked yourself out of it.
Same score the whole time. Exactly. I had to give you the floor.
Oh, no. Yeah, like I say, you're the mastermind behind this operation. Don't kid anybody here.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I think I'll just speak for him. I think we held things down pretty good in Cliff's absence tonight. He might just be out of a job when it's all said and done. But in all seriousness, we'll be looking forward to having Cliff back on the next episode. And it's always great when the trio is doing Around the Paw. But that's going to do it for us on this episode. And I'm Gary Mitchell along with Griffin Barfield. And as always, we sign off by saying it's a great day to be a Clemson Tiger. And as always, go Tigers.
Go Tigers.